Welcome back to another episode of the Wild Faith Podcast. Today we are on episode 18, and we have a special guest today. We have Chance Skelton, who is the owner and founder of RUT Holsters. We really just wanted to get him kind of on this podcast, and it kind of seems like a conversation that's been coming. We've kind of been tagging each other back and forth on Instagram here with different, motivational things with faith and everything, and now here we are. So Chance, thank you. Again, we talked about it earlier, but thank you for hopping on here with us today.
Thank you guys so much for having me. This is, like I said, we were talking a little bit before. This is the important stuff that there was never a doubt in my mind when you guys brought it up to hop on with you guys. The faith, the outdoors, the whole thing definitely was no second guess and no question as soon as you guys brought it up. So thank you guys for having me.
Oh, of course.
Oh, absolutely, man.
We just appreciate the support. It's kind of been fun now that it's so funny we keep saying this, that we've only been around for like 4 months, but like the people that have been supportive from the beginning. So thank you. Appreciate you from that aspect, but super excited to have you on the podcast. This is something that Luke and I have been talking about for a while, and I know you're busy with what you got going on in life right now, but we appreciate you taking time hopping on today. But just kind of going into it a little bit, just give us maybe just a little bit of a background on your business, on who you are, and just so we can kind of give the viewers a little bit of you.
I'm probably a little different than a lot of the guys in the outdoor hunting space. I grew up rodeoing, so I grew up riding saddle bronc horses.
Cool.
I did that from high school till I was 27. And during that time, we did some pheasant hunting, we did some bird hunting here and there, but nothing major because my passion, my focus was just all rodeo. I was all in. This is what I wanted to do. And then obviously you get to an age where you can't ride bucking horses anymore. And I think every guy that identifies themselves in a sport and an activity and anything like that, you allow that to become your identity. So I definitely went through after that a phase of like, who am I without that in my life? Which I think, really we should be finding that identity in God, and we can dig into that because that's ultimately where it all went to. But through that, I went down the rabbit hole. I went up and got into hunting, went and did some muzzleloader hunting, and then, went muzzleloader elk hunting, went deer hunting with a rifle with my brother-in-law and all that stuff, and loved that. And then I got into archery and went deep down the rabbit hole of archery as what tends to happen with guys that get into archery.
Yep.
You get into it and all of a sudden you're fletching your own arrows, you're doing all the things. And so
absolutely,
obviously, like I went down that rabbit hole, and that almost started to become my identity. And me and my wife have talked, we run a marriage ministry at our church. And so we even talked about the fact that like, there were points in time she saw archery as my mistress because I was so like just down the rabbit hole of like archery. And so then stepping back from that, it's still my passion. I still love archery. Archery hunting is my favorite go-to. We're blessed here in Colorado. We have over-the-counter tags. We're able to go archery elk hunting every year. It may be not the best unit. It may not be great odds, but you're able to go every year if you want to. I live out on the plains. We're able to go archery antelope, which is slowly becoming one of the most frustrating things I've ever done, but also like my favorite thing. I have yet to get a spawn stock archery antelope, but
oh, really?
It is so much fun on the flats where there's nowhere to hide to try and stalk an animal that relies on its vision for everything. So it is definitely one of the most frustrating and funnest pursuits out there. And that's kind of become like my goal now, is to spot and stalk archery antelope. And you get lots of practice. You get to blow a lot of stalks. You get to learn a lot every single time you're out there doing it. And it's definitely become one of the most fun and frustrating experiences of my life. But that's kind of how I got into the hunting. Along with that, like when I rodeoed, obviously I had faith, but I kind of was I go to Cowboy Church up here, and my pastor and everybody, we all talk about it. Like when you're rodeoing, there's a lot of guys that we carry Christ in our back pocket. Like he's our fire insurance. Like, hey, I'm saved, but only when I want to be. I was your typical rodeo cowboy. I was party animal. I was out doing all the things I shouldn't be doing. But, I'd be at church on Sunday when they had church at the rodeo. So I'm saved, but I'm still not living. I'm not walking the walk. I was just talking the talk, I guess would be a good way to put it. And so then fast forward, me and my wife actually started dating I rolled a pickup driving home from the bar one night. They found me 100 feet from where the pickup stopped rolling. The window I came out of was probably about that big. I had scratches and bruises. Like my dad was like, it looks like somebody caught you and like laid you across the ground instead of actually like thudding. And
Wow.
I got home from the hospital. That next morning, I opened up a devotional book I have, and the first verse in it was "Be ye but thankful." So yeah, I mean that kind of told the story right there, and that kind of started me down a new path of really just digging into my faith. Me and my wife started dating. We started attending the church, Cowboy Church here locally in Lucerne, Colorado, and we just kind of started digging into what God had for us. And since then, I mean, it's been, oh man. It's been just nonstop since, 12, 13 years of just running after what God has for us and our family.
That's awesome.
It's a wild run. Then I started RUT 3 years ago. Me and my good buddy Shane, he's also an elk hunter. We couldn't find what we liked for holsters. And I started looking, I was like, well, I can modify it. We go buy a holster, I can modify it, I can make it work. Like, that's who I am. I'll tinker with it and make it work. Or we can just buy the stuff and make our own for the same price as buying one and tinkering with it. And so we did that and started just making ones for your backpack, go on your hip belt, doing some concealed carry stuff for local people, like just typical Instagram side business. No intent of really making it a company at this point. Didn't have a name. It was just making holsters. And I made one that goes underneath my marsupial bino harness. And I was just in the garage playing with it. It was just an idea, like an inkling. I was like, I bet I could do that. So I made it, and I took a terrible picture, posted it on Instagram, and Marsupial Gear shared it. And then the messages started hitting the RUT Holsters account page of like, hey, can I get one of these? And I was like, and my wife was like, we need an LLC. We need, like, if we're going to do this, we need to dive in. We need to do this right now.
Yep.
And that's kind of where the company came from. And from there, we've just kind of, my whole thing is just innovating and trying to come up with ways for guys to be able to carry where we hunt, especially Colorado. We've got wolves now, Wyoming.
Yeah.
You've got grizzly bears, Wyoming, Montana, Idaho. Having that ability to protect ourselves in a way that's convenient while hunting. So it's not just in the way, but just trying to figure out a way to make it convenient for you to be able to carry while you're in the back, whether you're hunting from the truck, from a camper, whether you're hunting out of the backcountry, just making it convenient. So that's kind of the rundown on me, the company, and a little bit of everything there, I guess.
Love it.
No, that's awesome. When I first saw your page and your holsters, I was like, God, that is an amazing idea. Because even like just day-to-day stuff, like, we were just gone camping for the whole weekend and out and about, and like sometimes you just like, you can appendix carry all day, you can do all these different things, and it's just like you can never sometimes, like, especially with kids, like backpack, diaper bags, like you just can't ever get that comfy spot, and you're constantly monkeying around, or if you're just so it's like when you find something like that, I'm like, I've got my eye on a couple on your page right now that I might be putting in a couple orders here, because I'm just like, that is such a good idea. And so I guess when, going back to what you said, like when you kind of got into hunting, what was like, is there like some sort of, you said you were doing rodeo for how many years?
Oh, shoot. From the time I was I've been around horses growing up, though, forever. But I started riding broncs probably when I was 13 till I was 27. So probably, what was that, 14 years of like, that was just who I was. That was my identity,
So is that pretty much local to Colorado, or did you kind of go across the U.S.?
High school was mostly Colorado until like my senior year. We went to Shawnee, Oklahoma. I made nationals in Colorado for National High School Rodeo Association. And then I went to college and I college rodeoed in Riverton, Wyoming for my coach, Rick Smith, who really helped grow me as a bronc rider and taught me so much. And while I was in college, I was also doing PRCA rodeos, going from Montana to Kansas to Texas to wherever, while still doing the college rodeos in Wyoming and Colorado, and just kind of all over the place.
It's crazy.
Wow. So going off of that, or go ahead, Ev.
No, good. I was just going to say, I don't think people quite, when they think of the term rodeo, and I've been to a couple of rodeos in my life, and I have no business being, I can ride a horse and all that good stuff, but I don't think people understand what the true definition of like what rodeo is. I mean, if you had to like sum that all up into like a ball of like what it is to be in a rodeo and to live that life, like what would you say it is? Because it's rough and tough and it's gritty, and it's like you guys, it's not a walk in the park.
Oh man, it was some of the funnest times. I met my best friends through rodeo still to this day. But people think, people go watch a rodeo, they're there, it's their local hometown. For us, we're there usually one night and we're on to the next one. You're paying a couple $100 in entry fees just to have the opportunity to ride. If you get bucked off, or I rode saddle bronc horses, so obviously I was riding bucking horses. So if you get bucked off, like, you get no money. So you paid $200, you paid all the gas to get there. You walk away empty-handed. If you win, you're maybe, depending on the rodeo, walking out with hopefully $1,000 to a couple thousand in your pocket, but then you're turning around, paying for gas in a car to drive to the next one, paying for entry fees at the next one. 4th of July, there were times we'd be from Steamboat Springs, Colorado to Chadron, Nebraska to Cody, Wyoming to back down to Steamboat Springs in 4 days.
Jeez.
So, you finish at one and you hop in the car and you're driving to the next one. And it's just it's a different lifestyle, but it's also, I think, it's so cool to get to be a part of, because everybody sees it as a competition of you versus the other guys, and anybody riding bucking horses, it's a competition between you and the bucking horse. And I could get off and be winning a rodeo and go to my best friend that's traveling with me and be like, hey man, go out there and beat me. You've got the horse to do it. I want to see him go perform at his best. And if he beats me, he beat me. And I think that's cool to get to see. And I think you see that in the hunting industry more and more, just the general support of people. And so I think it's cool to get to watch and witness the way that those two worlds can kind of coincide in that same support for everybody in it, whether it's, for me, another holster business, like, you know what, good for them. They make a different product. It's a quality product. I'm not going to sit there and say it's not. I know another holster company in Colorado, Ivory Holsters. They make a great product. They're different than mine. We go to the same events. We talk to each other. We'll sit there and just have a conversation, support each other. I'll send people his way. He'll send people my way. That's the way this industry should be. It doesn't need to be, this backstabbing, backcutting. So I think that's where rodeo for me just kind of trained me into that, support everybody else around you. Because if you can build everybody up in this industry, we're all going to do better. And we're in a world where we're dwindling fast as hunters, and we need to be supporting each other, whether it's companies, whether it's the archery hunter versus the rifle hunter versus the muzzleloader hunter, or the big game versus the waterfowl versus the upland bird. Like, we all just need to be on that same page, because we're vastly outnumbered by opponents, and it's we need to step up and just be a unified group. And I think that's what you get to learn in rodeo, is just that ability to support anybody in that arena.
No, we kind of talked about that in the last one with Cal too, about, just like, there's no reason why there's so much animosity between hunters. Yeah, I get, there's obviously, like anything, there's a few bad eggs and you got to call a spade sometimes. But, with that, especially with you in Colorado, with what's going on over there, if you want to talk about that a little bit, go ahead. But boy, if that's not a blazing example of why hunters need to stick together, 100%. I don't know what is.
Man, it's a big deal. They've got guys out in parking lots still trying to work this bill to the mountain lion hunting, and they've got the word trophy hunting incorporated into this ballot measure. That's all they're after. They don't care about mountain lions. They don't. It was just the easy grab because it's a kitty cat, and they can use it as a front to get the word trophy hunting put into something to do it. But you get to. I mean, I've talked to these people canvassing grocery stores. They're not even from Colorado. They have no idea what the bill's about. They're there to collect a paycheck because somebody's paying them to collect signatures, to do all the things. Whereas you have the heart of the hunters out there saying, listen, like, we're out there trying to fight it on our own. And it's just unreal. And hopefully, the wolf measure barely passed to get them reintroduced. We fought that and it barely passed. So hopefully this one we can do a better job of speaking up and unifying and getting ahead of this one, because it just needs to be something of, if they can get that verbiage out there and allow that to pass, I think it's a slippery slope from mountain lion trophy hunting to elk to deer to everything. And then we're just going to be fighting a losing battle in this.
It's a rock slide effect
in this thing we love.
Yeah. So with that, I mean, like, when does, just to kind of get that across the message loud and clear with anyone that's listening to this, that maybe from Colorado, when do some of those dates, important dates start, or pointing, people in the right direction where they can get more information as far as, how detrimental this can be towards hunting, because it ultimately, like you said, is a huge slippery slope where it just takes this one little tiny measure, and then the rest of the hunting industry in Colorado is at a risk there.
Yeah.
The big one to go check out is Coloradans for Responsible Wildlife Management. They're leading the charge on this. Dan Gates. Get more information there. He's got all the information. They've got it. Get signed up for Howl for Wildlife. If you guys haven't seen Howl, they're out there doing it for not just Colorado, but all the states. They'll put you on an email list where they will get you the important measures so that you can get that information. You can put your voice out there. Because that way, as other states have things come up, you're getting to see what's going on in the big picture, not just your little ecosystem. Because I think, for me, I'm a Colorado hunter. I mean, obviously, Montana, Wyoming, all that stuff's on the bucket list. I have a good buddy that just moved up to Montana, wants me to come up there, and that's obviously the dream. But I stay in my little ecosystem of Colorado. So to be on Howl, where I'm getting to see the different deals coming across, you're getting to see what they're trying to pass somewhere else, whether it's New Jersey bear hunting, whether it's, that was one that came up just shortly ago, whether it's wolf hunting up around the Great Lakes, whether it's whatever it might be. There's all those issues that we just need to be supporting each other and standing together as one community on.
100%.
No, absolutely. And I think, kind of just, piggybacking on that, I think it was Jordan Peterson who talked about how, they're not going to come and take the entire piece of they're not going to come take the whole pie, right? They're going to take a little bit and then they're going to move an inch towards where they're going. And then all of a sudden they're 24 inches closer to where they wanted to be. And you're like, wait, how did we get here?
Yep.
Right. And that's where it's like, like you said, like that Howl for Wildlife, where you can sign up, because, the everyday person, the everyday hunter isn't going to be able to keep tabs on all the, the stuff that's going on, wherever, if it's at City Hall, if it's at the Capitol or wherever, and not be able to keep up with all the, the BS that's coming through. And so when you are able to get these notifications, you are able to kind of take the fight back to, the forefront and be able to support hunting, support local hunting, and support it for probably most importantly for generations to come.
Yeah. I mean, not going down a political rabbit hole because we could, but it's one of those things, like, we start talking about judicial systems and how things operate and work, and where we're at for our elections coming up this fall and stuff. And it's just like, everybody gets this mentality, especially guilty for us, like our younger generations, where it's, my voice doesn't matter. My one vote's not going to matter. But this is such a big factor that I don't think people realize, not just from a state to state level, but from a national level, where we have to unify as a group to make this message clear that we are such a niche group. If you think about it, we talked about with Cal in the last podcast of how really small we are in the fraction of our country's population. But if we don't stand up for ourselves and we don't unify with this, we're just will continue to keep getting pushed around. And like Luke said, it's just an inch by inch. And before you know it, we're in a situation where we can't get back from it. So it is super, super important for everybody that's listening. Please do your due diligence to figure out what you have going on in your state levels, and don't be afraid to get involved in other states too and supporting. And because this is, if you like hunting out of state, or if you like your own state hunting, this is stuff that, unfortunately we've gotten to a place where we all have to be on top of this and really strive to be messengers for a good cause. And like Luke said, it's for the generations to come. It's not for us.
Yeah. So let's get back to you, Chance.
Yeah.
So like you talked about, like kind of towards the end of your rodeo careers when you kind of started getting more involved with hunting. So can you kind of share with us like that moment in time, whether it's hunting or when you start getting into archery, where it was just like, this is something that I'm going to do for the rest of my life?
I think for me, like I've always just loved time in the mountains, whether it was, fishing, hunting, whatever it was even back when I was rodeoing. But for me, there's just something, I can remember the first archery season being up there by myself, waiting for my brother-in-law and guys who were muzzleloader hunting with us because they overlap. And so I was up there ahead of them doing some archery hunting, and still able to scout a little bit for them as muzzleloader hunters. So it was kind of a win-win. But just being up in the mountain alone, hiking back in, I'm a guy that doesn't like to sit still. So I was doing,
nice.
8 to 10 miles a day, like just making a loop, calling, but just being back there by yourself, just getting to sit in what he created around us and getting to see it for what it is, those quiet, still moments of that I think, especially hunting, you really get to experience when you're being quiet, when you're being still, and you get to just be in what he created. I think for me, man, that's where I just fell in love with hunting. That's where I fell in love with archery hunting. That, and then just shooting a bow. For me, there's something just peaceful about being able to go out. I'm blessed I can shoot in my backyard here. So being able to go out, grab my bow, and just shoot in the quiet of the backyard and just enjoy that time. And it's almost like a meditation. We have the guys at archery hunt, you have your mantras you say in your head as you're shooting or whatever it is, but you're able just to sit there and just get that quiet time. For me, it's running. That's the other thing that, I work out, running, throwing on a podcast. I listened to you guys last time, getting that time in with God, throwing in a podcast, whether it's hunting or whether it's, a faith-based podcast to build up yourself up, but taking that time, I kind of cycle through my faith-based and my hunting podcasts on my run, whether it's Jordan Peterson or Braveco or you guys, or whether I'm listening to Meat Eater, Kafaru Cast, any of that, I kind of cycle. On top of that, I do the marriage ministry podcast. I listen to a bunch of them too. So it's kind of where I find that time to get that extra in, because to me, that working out's important. I'm about to have a son, so I'm in that mode where I'm going to have to stay in shape so that I can put him in his place as he starts growing up.
Yep.
On top of that, I have 2 daughters, so I also I have to be the fit dad so that when the boys come around at some point in time, I can at least be a little bit intimidating. So
Yep. I say that, my wife just laughs at me. She's like, "Why do you got to do that?" I'm like, it is rooted in our DNA, where it's I'm going to be twice the size of whatever boy comes in this house someday. It's going to be I'm going to be trying to be in the best shape I can be in.
That's awesome. No, I was gonna try and bring up the fitness part, because I've been noticing some of your stories and posts about doing different rucks and then going for a run. So have you always been kind of a not necessarily like a fitness freak, but you know what I mean, just have that mentality of this is something I have to do, and this is just my daily checklist. I have to get it in.
It was kind of ingrained to me in college rodeo, and we had fitness class as a college rodeo team to go do it. Obviously, there have been times in my life where it was more important and less. But as I'm just turned to 39 this year, so as I've gotten older, I've learned that it's more and more important. And for me, it's just become kind of that personal push. Me and some guys from work decided to do 75 hard starting in January this year.
Awesome.
So I did the whole 75 hard thing, which was great to be able to push me even into reading again because I love to read, but I quit making time for it. But that kind of pushed me down this rabbit hole of like, I haven't missed a workout now since January. Every day I make sure I get something in for a workout. And it's been fun just to get to do that and see where I'm at, which turned into Western Hunt Fest, a great event that I partner with. I'm a vendor for them, great guys. They were doing a pack out challenge, and I was like, oh, I'm going to do it. Like, I've seen the guys do it every year. Like, I'm going to do it. And so part of it was prep for that. And now that that's over with, and it's like, well, I want to do it again next year, but I did a team this year, so I want to do solo next year. So I'm like, well, let's continue to push it so that I can be in better shape for solo. Most of the guys doing it, I think, are a lot younger than me probably. So I'll be 40 next year. So I'm like, well, let's prove the old guy can
That's right.
step up and hang.
There you go.
So,
yeah.
What is that challenge? Can you go into detail on that?
So they do a pack out challenge there. So Western Hunt Fest, they do an archery shoot, a pack out challenge, and an elk calling competition. The pack out challenge for men is a simulated elk. So you're looking at sandbags. I think between me and my partner, we did it in one trip, and so it was 140 pounds in sand. One person has to carry a deadhead. One person has to carry a bow. So if you're doing it by yourself, then it's like 260, 280 by yourself. You can take as many trips as you want to. So if you want to do 3, you can, but most of the guys are doing it in one or in 2 trips. And it's usually about
all time based, right?
Yeah, all time based from when you start loading your pack. So the time starts when you start loading. So it's knowing your pack, it's knowing your gear. And then I think the loop was a 1 mile loop, I want to say, at the one in Colorado Springs. It was a half mile up and a half mile back. And so if you did it, then it'd be doing it twice to go do it twice. But it's just for time. And I mean, obviously I would love to win it, but for me, it's and a lot of guys will tell you it's the ability just to prove to yourself you can do it. Like how many of us, I solo hunt, and like to be able to prove like, hey, this is why we train this way, so that if we get one down, when we get one down in the backcountry, we can get it out. Obviously, we're not going to take half an elk out in one trip in that scenario, but just that ability to push ourselves to be better, to be stronger. And it's a cool community of guys. Like to me, it's kind of like getting back into that rodeo mindset, because we're all there supporting, cheering each other on, even if you're competing against them. When you see a guy coming into the finish line with 140 pounds on and he's jogging to try and get the best time he can, you're like, come on, let's go. Like everybody's cheering, yelling. They do the women's as well for that. It's a simulated mule deer. I don't know the exact poundage. My wife did that last year, not this year. She was pregnant this year, so she did it last year in New Mexico. But they do the women's as well, so that they have a shot to jump in there and get to compete and do the same thing.
What pack do you run?
I run the Kafaru. I have the older frame, not their new arc frame, and then I'm running the Hoodlum pack. It's got enough room. I can use it for day hunt. It shrinks down super small. I can day hunt with it still, but it's got enough room. I could go back for 3 or 4 days with it if I wanted to as well. So just kind of one I could do it all with and not have to worry about getting multiple bags. I'm sure eventually I'll upgrade and get some new bags and stuff, but they fit me super clean, super well, carries the weight well, handles it well.
They get custom built, aren't they? I mean, like
they can customize the stays to fit your back. I have a super deep arch on my back, so that's where that padding and the way that theirs sit just comes in super comfortable for me. And yeah, they, the guys over there, they'll set you up, they'll get you dialed in with whatever you need. So
it's
I can't
cool
speak
to see
enough about
Aaron
that.
run that company. He's turned that company into, I mean, it's awesome. The quality of products that they have is crazy.
It's unreal. Aaron, Dan, Amanda, Mackenzie, there's probably more of them I'm forgetting that I've talked to over the last bit, but like they're all just such good people, whether they're at events, whether I'm talking to them online, whatever it is, they're just good people that want to help you. And I think that's what is so cool to get to see. Like I said, in the outdoors is just the amount of help and support. Me coming in as a young business, the people that have just jumped in and backed me and helped me along the way and been there to show support. It's a cool community once you get into it and you get to see the support that's really the backbone of this industry.
That's awesome. Yeah, kind of going off of that a little bit too, getting back into kind of the business mindset for you. So Luke said it a little bit earlier, and it's kind of the same mindset that I have. The cool thing that I love about your guys' business is I feel like when I'm always carrying, it's nice, and you can have an appendix holster. You feel good and carry. You got an outside appendix holster. I've got one, but it's one of those things. Like I have a fetish, I guess we'll call it, for backpacks. I think I have like five frame packs. Too many. But it's like the same thing. I would do the same thing for holsters though too, because there's so many different instances of where I've got a certain setup and it'd be like, it would be nice to be able to hold my gun right here. So now that you guys have been around for a little bit now, and now that you've kind of starting, are you consistently just working on new prototypes for new bags and new things that are coming out, or like what's in the pipeline for coming up for you guys?
The latest thing that we've just come out with, we dropped it earlier this year, is it's a fully modular system. So depending on which level of it you order, it can go from behind your bino harness to underneath your bino harness to on the hip of your pack to on the belt of your pants. And so it's one of those that is just can kind of encompass everything. We offered a thigh rig version as well, with the thigh rig added in for the people that, that's the way they like to carry. The thought process being is a lot of times up here, especially in bear country, guys carry on their pack, they carry on their bino harness. And if that's where you're carrying, that's great until you get back to camp, because as soon as you take off that pack or you take off that bino harness, you throw them in your tent, or you throw them in your truck, or you throw them in your camper, or wherever you throw them, your gun stays on it. And one of the most likely places to have an incident with a bear is when you're sitting in camp and you have your food out and everything else, and then your gun's on your pack, and you don't have access to it. So I have the ability to pull that holster off your pack just by simply, it's a thumb quick release button that'll pull the holster off. You can throw a clip onto your belt, clip it right onto your belt. And at that point, you're able just to carry it easily without having to worry about where it's at. You can leave the attachment on your pack, because I run a Kafaru pack, so everything's going through PALs, the Molly loops, and I love them, but I hate attaching anything to them because it is a pain. Like, they're great.
They're rock solid though.
Yeah. Once it's on there, it's great, but it's that issue of like getting everything. Once you take it off and you look at it and you're like, I have to reattach that. And that took me 10 minutes just to get it off of there.
Yeah.
And that's the last thing you want to do in the mornings when you're getting up to head out to go hunt, is have to mess with fishing, fighting something back onto your pack. So just to make it easy to where it's you don't have to think about it, you don't have to fight with it type of setup.
Awesome.
So kind of going off of that too, because it's always interesting to talk to business owners, and because there's such a especially small business owners like ourselves, because it's like there's so much, like a majority of your time is spent running the business, you're right, and then you also have passions like hunting, like fishing, like whatever, and then there's also the huge family side of things. So how do you kind of balance the two or the three, I guess, between it's running the business, still being able to go hunting, but then still being, a good father, a good husband. Where do you find balance? And then, with that,
man, it's tough. It's something that you really have to look at and think about. I have a full-time job too. Still, RUT isn't my own sole income yet, maybe at some point. So, I'm blessed. My full-time job, I run an 8 and 6 schedule in the oil field. So I get work 8 days on, I get 6 days off. So I get that time to work on my business. But even then, like, I work every other weekend at my full-time job. So RUT on the Saturdays and Sundays I'm off, I don't even touch it. Unless we're going to a show, unless we're going to something like that on a weekend, I don't even touch it. I don't mess with it. I may return an email, I may return a message on Instagram, but I'm not going to be out working on anything. Saturdays and Sundays when I'm home, I'm with the wife, I'm with my girls, spending time with them. And then, we've kind of just built into the events we do. They're just family events. If I'm going to a Western Hunt Fest, if I'm going to whatever event it is, Mule Deer Days, I did that up in Rock Springs. My wife couldn't come due to some bed rest style issues, light duty that she's on with the pregnancy. She couldn't come with me, but we're about to have another baby in the house, and my 6-year-old, she wanted some time with dad, so just me and my 6-year-old, the two of us just hopped in the truck and we went up there and we got that dad and daughter time, just the two of us at a show. So for me, it's just incorporating them. Both my girls love to shoot bows. My girls are like the perfect tomboy of princess and
Love that.
Tomboy. Like I remember when my 6-year-old, when she was like 3 or 4, I'd be like, "Hey, you want to go shoot? Dad's gonna shoot." She'd be like, "Yeah, let me change." She'd run upstairs and put on her princess. She'd be wearing like shorts and jeans or shorts and a t-shirt, and she'd run upstairs and she'd put on her princess dress so that we could go shoot bows. And I'm like, you know what? If it makes you happy, like I'm not going to complain. But they're both doing the youth out calling contests at Western Hunt Fest. My 3-year-old and my 6-year-old, and they love it. Honestly,
that's amazing.
They probably bugle better than I do, and they're not even using a reed. It's just their voice. Like they are, like it's been cool to just get to experience that. But that's kind of the big part for me. And then when I'm home, like Sundays, we're going to church. I think I don't know the statistic, but off the top of my head, but families where the husbands are taking the family to church are far more successful. There's far more growth in that family than where the wife's dragging the husbands to church. So I set that precedent of when I'm home, like that's what we're doing on Sundays. We're going to church. We serve at the church. Obviously, we serve the marriage ministry. So that's almost, we just finished week 5 of the 6-week premarital/marital course that we're doing. We have an event coming up on the 29th. We're bringing in a couple out of Texas to come do a marriage seminar. So, it's balancing all of that, but we just do it all together. My wife she's amazing. She's the other half of RUT. She runs the numbers. She does all of that. Our behind the bino harness, I have to give her credit. The one on the paddle slips in on the back of the pocket of your bino harness. That was her design, her idea.
Awesome.
I spent like 3 days in the shop trying to figure out how to make a behind the bino harness holster work. I walked inside and I was like, I can't do it. I don't know what to do. And she's like, why don't you just make a piece that slips in the pocket? And I'm like, well, it doesn't, you can't. And I just turned around and walked back out to the garage. I was like, all right, let's go try this. And sure enough, here we are down the road. She won. She had the design. So I always give her credit. That was all her.
That's awesome.
But we just do that. And, when we're home, we make time for those, a date time, even if, we have 2 kids, she's pregnant. We don't have time for a real date, but we get the girls put to bed. We'll sit down and play a game of cards or just turn off the TV and just talk and just enjoy time together versus zoning out to TV, zoning out to something else. I'll grab the girls. We'll go shoot bows in the backyard. Right now, my wife can't shoot, but she'll come sit and we'll just talk and just enjoy that time in whatever way we can. My girls are already, my 6-year-old's begging to go hunting with me. I'm like, baby girl, you got to wait little while. But when I go scouting, she's in the truck with me ever since she was little. I talked about archery antelope hunting. She'd be riding in the truck with her binoculars at 3 years old. And she's like, I see one, looking at her binoculars. And I'm like, where? And I look over there and it's a rock. And I'm like, good job, baby. Like, just keep pointing stuff out.
Good job.
You're still doing great. But that's just,
it.
For me, it's just having them involved in every part of the business to the fun side. And when I get back from hunting, it's making that time to focus on them once I get back. If I'm gone for a week, it's taking that time to decompress and spend time with them when I get back, whether it's taking my girls out for a date, just me and my girls, or whether it's, finding a sitter and take my wife out for a date. I try to do all those things. I mean, I'm the image my girls have to look for when they grow up and get older, looking for a husband. So it's important that I set an example right now in this moment of what a man should be for them. So
no, that's so good, and I think that's like the perfect segue, kind of diving a little bit more into the faith piece. And I just think really it's crazy, the older, Luke and I are our early 30s here, and we're just going through those fresh stages of dad life. And it's been fun to see the kids grow up and how we've matured with our relationships with our wives. But, you kind of hit everything on the head there, where it's just this fine dance that you kind of have to do. But I really think in order to make all that happen and to be at peace, you got to be at peace with God, with all that. And I think that's what he kind of brings, that harmonious feeling of where you don't feel stressed out, you don't feel pushed or rushed, and it just kind of naturally happens. And like you said about church, I couldn't agree more with that. I mean, kind of got to set the precedence to make sure that this is what we're doing in this family and this is how we're going to live. And, I just commend you for that, because I just think that's awesome. And, being a role model for your kids is just, it's awesome.
I think we live in a day and age. I mean, I listen to a lot of like Brave Co. I don't know if you guys follow them at all, Jason Valaton and that stuff, but like we live in a day and age where men don't want to do those things, and they don't want to step up, and they don't want to be the leader there. And I think it's just so important that we take the lead in our marriages, in our fatherhood, raising our children, that we're not just sitting back and letting our wives run the family. I mean, my wife will tell you, when we got married, I was your typical rodeo guy. Like, I've lived off of no money in my pocket going down the road. So I had faith. I always had the faith that like God will be there. He'll show up. There'll always be a way to get to the next one. On my finances, like I never had an issue with that. With that being said, I was also a very irresponsible spender, where I'm like, oh, that's all right. We'll figure it out. It'll be okay. And my wife's the exact opposite.
Yeah.
And so then we do like Dave Ramsey. Like, she's like, well, we need to do Dave Ramsey. We need to do this. And I'm like, no, like, you don't get to tell me what to do with my money. Like, that was my mindset at the time. Like, as I walked through that, and then instead, like, now, like, I'm the one that, like, I grab the computer when the paycheck comes in, and we're going through the allocated spending sheet, and we're making sure the tithes are coming out. We're making sure that checking off all the boxes. And it's like, God worked so hard on that, on my heart, of stepping into that leadership of my household, of like, hey, if you're going to lead, step up and lead. Don't just sit back and let her run the show. And I think it's so important that we take that lead as men for our families, because otherwise, we're leaving them hung out to dry, and you're leaving a wife to step into a man's shoes. And I know we live in a world where they say that that's okay, but I mean, you can read the Bible and it says we were created for our purposes. We're created to balance each other out. My wife is my balance. 100%. She shouldn't be doing my job. She should be balancing out my job. And that's something we've definitely learned. I mean, we've walked through, like I said, we started dating on a DUI. I don't recommend that to anybody out there, but it worked for us. Like, we walked through a lot of stuff in the, was it 9 years we've been together almost? I think it's coming up on 9. I might be shooting if I'm not, but I could be. But we walked through so much of just the crap that comes along with it, and having each other by side. I mean, from what we've walked through, if you'd have told me we'd have a stronger marriage and be happier now than we were on our honeymoon, I probably would be like, yeah, right. Like, everybody knows the honeymoon's the happiest. And right now, I mean, I couldn't imagine the life we have when we first got married right now. Just the joy, the happiness, what we get to do on a daily basis of speaking into people. I mean, we spent an extra hour last night talking to a couple that's fairly newly married, about life, and just, it was after everything was done, and just getting to pour into people what God has poured into you. It's just, man, there's nothing better than it, in my opinion. The hunting, all the rest of it's great, like I said, but the important stuff is what God does through all of that. The stuff that's come, the people that have come into my life through the hunting industry that are in the faith, they're incredible people. They're my brothers, I can call them, whether they're in New Mexico, Colorado Springs, wherever. Those are the guys that, like, when I found out we're having a baby or we're having a boy, those are my first calls. They may not be my next door neighbor, but they're my brother, because we walked through, and we're there for each other.
So with the, because I mean, I said when a few questions back, I was talking about, there's the three things. There's, the faith side of things. There's the running the businesses, running a family. But with you, there's like a million other things in there too. It's awesome. I mean, but I think a part of it too, and this is just kind of reiterating what you said probably, but it's just like, in today's culture, we're all just so okay with complacency and just the easy stuff. It's just, because everything is easy. You can just click on the phone, watch whatever you want, do whatever you want, order something, do this, then that. And you get so lost, and then all of a sudden the day's over, and it's like, where did it go, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, that's where I think each person does need to do hard things, challenge yourself, because not only is that going to make you a better person, it's going to make you a better man. It's going to make you a better husband to your wife. It's going to make you a better father to your kids, and it's going to just grow yourself spiritually. And I think that's what a key piece for me with this podcast has been, just over these last few months, just being able to like kind of just like not give up is the wrong word, but it's like kind of just give in, right? Mm-hmm. It's like, you talking to yourself. It's like, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing, but I do know who does know what I'm supposed to be doing. And that's the guy upstairs. And if I can just put all my, ideas of what I think is right to the side and just trust in his process, trust in his hand and his, because it is just the perfect guiding hand. And it's, again, I've said it, like the Bible is the ultimate guidebook to life, where if you could just set aside all your doubts and just trust 100%, you're just going to have so much peace coming from it, not only with internally, but externally through your family and stuff. So with that being said, like where did the inspiration kind of come, as far as like, you've been with your wife now for 9 years. You guys have been through some stuff. Where did that inspiration to come, where you guys both were like, we want to help other families. We want to do this marriage ministry through your church and be able to be, kind of a resource to young couples?
Oh man, we started we started out serving together even when we were dating. In the youth group, we were doing the youth ministry, and that was kind of where we started. We did the youth group stuff. We moved back to teaching kids for a little bit of a while. And then she was on the worship team and I kind of took a break, and we had a couple that had poured into us that asked us to come help them with the marriage ministry. And so we helped them for a little while, and they decided to step down, and, they called us and really spoke into us like, hey, we want you to take this over. And, we prayed about it and like decided, yes, we would. And then that started a whole nother, it's a whole nother can of worms for me, because my wife was like, we need to prep for the marriage ministry. And she was on me, trying to be encouraging and help me and grow us and push me to dig into it more and more. And I was like, yeah, I will. Yeah, I will. Yeah, I will. Well, it's actually like funny story that I went to the office and I talked to another guy from our church that works out of the same office as I do for my full-time job. And we were talking about the marriage ministry stuff a little bit and this, that, and the other. And I was like, you know what? Like, talk to him. I was like, I'm going to go get in my truck, go do some work, kick on a podcast. So like, I'll kick on KafaraCast. Thinking like, I'll just zone out. Don't want to have to worry about nothing. Like, just go listen to some hunting stuff and be done. Well, I kicked on KafaraCast, and it was the first time that Aaron had Jay Valaton on. And they were talking about nothing but men's health, like mental health and marriages and that type of stuff. And like, it was just that moment where I was like, okay, God, like, I get it. Like, like he's just hammering me like, hey, like, you need to be paying attention to this. And it was just that, like it's just that moment where it like just hit me. I was like, okay, fine. So then like fast forward, I started listening to Brave Co. Through that, I dug into just looking up some of the other marriage podcasts that are out there, the faith-based ones, Unrelenting Pursuit. Started talking with them just back and forth on Instagram. We have them coming up here in June to our church to do a marriage seminar now. They're coming all the way from Texas to Colorado to come get to do a marriage seminar. And so it's just that, like, God's just provided those pathways in my life and in our lives, me and my wife's, to move forward in this. And then just walking through trials and struggles of marriage and getting to see other couples going through and being like, you know what, I can make a difference by speaking up and letting them know what we've walked through. I can be that voice that speaks into men of like, hey, I know it may not feel like it, but you're doing a good job. Like, I know it might be tough, but you're doing, like, just keep doing what you're doing. Because you're doing the right things. And sometimes it doesn't feel that way. Sometimes it just feels like you're struggling to get the right thing done every day, day in, day out. But it's that where you just keep pushing, you keep pressing, and eventually it just becomes the natural because of the supernatural, I guess would be the easiest way to say that. Like, his supernatural makes it natural when you just press into him. And so just like, for me, it's just been that, just getting to speak into people and see the changes that we get to be in the community. We did a date night at the church and getting to see 50 couples come and laugh at a Christian comedian together. Like,
fun.
was just like the biggest blessing in the world to get to sit in the back and watch that and know that like those couples got a date night that was purposed for them.
Yep.
The end of it, the guy that we know he's a pastor as well ministers to them about their marriages, and like it's just like I said, those connections. Like we plan an event and we're like, God, tell us who to contact, and he'll light somebody up, like point them out to us, and we'll call them. And we're like, if it works, it works. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And every time it's like we talk to them, like, oh yeah, that date works perfect for us. And we're like, well, I guess that's where we're supposed to be. And so it's kind of just that relying on him to guide those steps. And yeah, I mean, I don't know if I answered the question. I probably rambled and went off on a rabbit hole, but yeah.
No, that's amazing, man. I mean, and go ahead, Ev.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just going to touch on too. I mean, I think what you were just saying too, specifically about, husbands and stuff is such an important message with, June being Men's Mental Health Awareness Month, is that, boy, and I'm sure every dad and husband out there feels this way, but sometimes it just feels like, I feel like nothing I'm doing is right. There's not, it's like, I take one step forward and it's 3 steps back. Right. But it's like, and that's where, and like you hit it on it, but for me specifically, it's like, that's where I find so much peace, and knowing that like, yeah, as long as you're continually stacking up more days, good days than not, you're doing the right thing. Yeah, there's going to be setbacks. Yeah, there's going to be this, that, and everything. But if you just cast away all those doubts, all those fears and anxiety, and just give them to the Lord, he's going to give you so much strength and peace, and just let you know that, in little ways, whether it's like, like now it's almost ingrained in our 4-year-old's head, is like, second we sit down for supper, he's doing father, son, and it's like, those are just those little moments and times where it's like God just lets you know, like, hey, see, you're doing good, you're doing all right. And I think that's so important for men, with, like I said, with June being Men's Mental Health Awareness Month, to just remember the little things, right? Remember how much beauty comes from just looking at your kid, just playing, doing nothing, whatever, but they're just doing their thing. So, I mean, I really appreciate you talking about that, because it is a very important thing. I think we're trying to push out to everyone who listens to this.
Yeah, I mean, we put a lot on our shoulders and men. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, kind of going off of what Luke said, and, thank you for sharing your story, because I think you have a really unique faith journey, and it's been kind of fun now hearing this from other people and kind of correlating it of how we've all had our moment to where it was like we give in and we submit to Christ, but also like the little subtle things like you talked about, where you just keep getting these little hints and little nudges saying, you know what, this is something you need to do. And it's so crazy how he works like that. And he's just so subtle with things. And, it's finally you just submit and you give into it, and it's like beautiful things happen. And just kind of going off of that, Luke hit a really good point on the men's mental health thing. And, just tell us, for yourself, like, obviously, like you've got a lot on your plate, not just from being a dad, from being a business owner, ministering these couples, which is such an awesome thing. And I commend you for that, because that's a space that really, really needs it. Because I do think for young couples, getting started with faith is such an important thing, just to establish that key root of foundation that some people might not find later in life. Like, like I look at my wife and I, we really didn't fully submit until probably 2 or 3 years ago, where we had this radical change in our relationship and just how we went about life and how we looked at finances, where we just gave it to God and it was all good. But for yourself, like, just tell us maybe a little bit, like, what has God given to you from a personal level of getting through all these different things on a day-to-day life?
I mean, for me, I think it's just taking time to be with him. Like I said, I go for a run, I listen to a podcast, but on top of that, like, I'm reading my Bible every morning. I have a group of men, we're doing the Bible in 365 days this year as well.
Awesome.
So working our way through that on the Bible app on the phones. And then 75 Hard instilled into me just starting to read a book as much as I can. So right now I'm digging into Danny Silk's The Way of the Dragon Slayer, which is a great book about brotherhood. And so I think that's the other part of it. It's not just spending time with God, but it's digging into the brotherhood portion of it. So when I stepped away from rodeo, I kind of stepped away from it completely and wholly. And then I got the opportunity about a year and a half ago to start teaching high school kids to ride bucking horses.
Cool.
And that's been with some of my good buddies and some new friends that I've made. And it's all based on a pastor that put it all together. So it's the faith aspect while teaching these kids. And so through that, I've got my pastor, who's our operations pastor at the church. I call him my pastor because he's my spiritual father. He's always there when I need him. He holds me accountable. But now I've got brothers that they hold me accountable to, and I think it's that accountability as men, having brothers that we are accountable to share our feelings, our emotions with. I come from a society, at least in the Western world, the rodeo world, where like you don't talk about your emotions, like rub some dirt on it and move on, like it doesn't matter. Like that's how I grew up, but that's not healthy for us as men to just bottle it all up because it's going to come out somewhere. I was listening to Jason Balaton somewhere, and he said our emotions are like our kids. Like we can't let them drive the car, but you also can't just lock them in the trunk. Like you have to be willing to deal with them and sort them out. Like you can't let your emotions drive you, but you also can't just lock them up in the trunk and pretend they don't exist. Because if you did that with your kids, like either one of those with your kids is completely irresponsible. And so it's being willing to talk about those, whether it's to your wife, and number one, to your wife, because if you're not communicating emotionally with your wife, there's a lack in your relationship. And number two, with brothers, with other men in your life that you can reach out to, no matter what you're struggling with, that hold you accountable to what you say you're going to do. And I think, stepping back into with some brothers in that area, I have other brothers in the church, but coaching rodeo with kids and then getting to walk that out with them by showing it with guys that I'm close to. Man, for me, that's just been the biggest change, is just having that brotherhood, having that connection. We all need that in our lives, because without that, trying to do it solo, you'll carry too much weight on your shoulders. You got to do it with God, number one, because he'll take the weight off your shoulders, but you got to have brothers to have your back and guard you and stand side by side with you when you're going through those storms or those moments where you need help.
Amen. That's good.
I love that. I think that's a good thing for all of us men to remember too, is we can't do it alone. And there are other guys out there that are struggling, and you don't know who that is. Could be your best friend. It could be somebody you haven't talked to in a year. It could be whoever. But it's like, even for myself, that's just a good reminder to just reach out, right? Just reach out to someone, see how their day's going, just check in, say, hey man, how you been? Haven't talked in a while. And it may be good, may be completely fine, and then that move on. But boy, there's been times where you reach out to someone and they're like, damn, I'm struggling, man. Thanks for reaching out. I needed somebody to. And then and that's when you can try and do that, and it's just so beautiful, man. And so it's just there's a lot of peace that comes from that, and you just grow, right? You grow yourself, you grow your relationships with other guys, and just there's so much peace. I just keep saying the word peace, but there is just so much peace that comes from that.
What advice do you have for, sticking on that note, for just young men kind of in general that maybe are in that place that don't have that brotherhood aspect anymore? Because I look at it for myself, like when I got done playing college football, similar to you kind of growing up with the rodeo and stuff, those were my brothers for 5-6 years, and then outside of the other ones I had in high school. And it was just like when that was done, it was gone. And I think of the family members I have and the friendships and the brotherhood they built in the military, and when that was done, they were done with that. Then it's like, what resource or where can I go to continue that, when that's done, and we sit in that awkward lull period of our lives of where we sit in loneliness for a while until we find outlets or whatever that is. Like, do you have any advice for any young men out there that are searching for something like that?
I'd say get plugged in. Number one, at a local church is a great place to start. I mean, I know it's hard because even local churches, like, it's hard to get connected with people. Sometimes it's easy to sit in the back and not talk to anybody. So I think you have to be the one that's willing to step out and seek that out, but get connected at a church or finding something you're passionate about and finding a mentor. Whether that's a good one. And a mentor doesn't necessarily mean that it's somebody, that's been doing it forever, that's older than you, but somebody that's that can teach you, that can walk beside you in whatever aspect of life that is. Or like if it's here for archery, like getting connected with a group of men that are like-minded, whether it's the local archery club that are out shooting, whether it's that, and through those, you're going to start finding those people that you can connect with that are the same mind. But I mean, I think those are the best places to start, or just finding those passions and those people that you can link arms with, even if it's maybe, like I said, like for me, buck and horse practice brought me back to some of my old buddies that I got to reconnect with and grow that relationship again with that I'd stepped away from. But up here, I've gotten connected with a bunch of guys that shoot archery, and I'm able to talk to them. We have a group chat that we can hop on. We can talk about whatever's going on, whether it's like, hey, I need advice for some supplements for working out, or like, hey, I'm really struggling with this right now. That it just covers everything. It's not a like, hey, this, but it's that group of like, hey, this is what I need right now. And so I think that's what's cool to get to see, is that ability just to have other men in your life that are there for you no matter what it is. And then, like I said, for me, like my pastor, finding that spiritual person to speak into you, whoever that might be, whether it's a pastor or just another man that's walking that faith road beside you, that can hold you accountable to those things. I have my spiritual father and I have my spiritual brothers, and we all hold each other accountable for what we've got going on. If we say we're going to do something to each other, we better make sure we're there to do it, because otherwise I'm going to get a phone call from one of them that's like, hey, what are you doing? And it'll be in love, but I've gotten the phone calls from them like, hey, pull your head out from where you got it and pay attention to what you're doing.
Yep. 100%.
Love it. No, I think that's a good spot too to just kind of segue. We've been doing this now the last few episodes is just kind of a fun, lighthearted way to kind of close out here, but is just do a few quick fire questions for you here. So first one up, what would be your favorite hunting season?
Archery elk.
Archery elk. Nice. All right. So you were talking earlier with going out scouting, with your 6-year-old a lot. It's a lot of miles on the truck. What's the go-to gas station snack and drink?
Oh man, drink. I don't buy a whole lot of like fast food drinks anymore. Coffee, I guess, for me would be a go-to gas station drink, because I don't drink much energy drink or soda anymore.
Good.
Snack. I quit chewing Copenhagen, so my sweet tooth is like through the roof. So like lately, it's been those Nerds clusters with the
man, like the rope.
Yeah. That's been that's been high on my list, because my sweet tooth is just, since I quit chewing Copenhagen, through the roof. So
nice. This one's kind of this is a good one for you. What's the one piece of gear you'll never leave home without?
Obviously, I'm obligated to say a holster. But other than that, I mean, honestly, like for me, the most important thing for the hunting I do, especially elk hunting, one of the most important ones is a good pack.
For sure.
So not to just throw the holster out there as the easy one, but a good pack, man, it'll make or break your hunt, because if it doesn't fit you right, it hurts your back, you're done, and you're going home early.
Oh, couldn't agree more on that one.
So I do got to ask though, what is the holster that you carry? If you had to pick, I mean, obviously you have at the disposal whenever you want, but what is the one that you're primarily always carrying?
Right now, I'm running our RUT triple setup, which is below your harness and on your hip belt, and I'm carrying right now in the SIG 10 millimeter that I just got, the D320 X10.
Nice.
So yeah.
Okay. Sweet.
Nice. That's a fun toy.
Yeah.
All right. So another one here. So dream hunt, and it would be species and location.
Oh man, that's a tough one. I mean, there's some awesome hunts. I guess I would say I'd love to be able to just get a bighorn sheep here in Colorado, just because like to get one in my home state.
Okay.
And sheep hunting, I mean, I've never been on one, but I like to push myself. So to have that challenge of going up high and getting to do it, that would be one that I think would be fun for me. And then just in Colorado, because it's where I'm from, it's where I grew up, to have that home state.
For sure.
For sure.
Absolutely. And so going off of that a little bit here, what would be, your biggest piece of advice for a first time Western hunter?
Get physically in shape. I think that would be my biggest piece of advice is if you've never been out west, is get physically in shape and then come spend the time here to adjust to the altitude. If you're not used to the altitude, it's a game changer for a lot of people to come here and take those days to acclimate so you don't run the risk of altitude sickness. You don't run the risk of ending your hunt early. There's a lot of ways you can hunt Colorado. Obviously, there's the guys that do it from the truck. There's the guys that go back 20 miles on their feet. But whatever way you want to do it, make sure you're in physical shape to be able to stand up to it, because the mountain is the great equalizer, and it will. It doesn't care what you think, and it'll put you in your place even when you think you're in shape.
Yeah. That's where I'm dying to get out west. Like Luke and I've been going to South Dakota for this will be my 10th year now, and that's like my mini mountains. So I'm waiting to get to the real.
Still got the training wheels on.
That's right, pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
awesome.
I think last year I camped at 10,000 feet is where I said camp at here. I probably won't get an archery elk season this year with the baby coming and stuff. I'm gonna stay at home, do the dad thing with a new baby that'll be here. Yep. Got to be responsible and get that time in with my little boy once he gets here. So yeah,
that's super exciting.
Love it.
And in tradition here, I mean, we'd love for you to close this out in a prayer if you want.
Yeah, I definitely can. Absolutely.
Yeah, sweet.
God, we just thank you for this time. We just thank you for conversation led by you. We just ask that whatever this conversation may be, God, whatever it was, God, that what needs to be heard falls on the ears that need to. That whatever was from you, God, is what falls on the ears. Anything that is of us falls on deaf ears, God, and that it would just be led, God, to you. We ask that anybody listening to this, God, that you would just bless them where they're at. God, that you would just guide and direct their footsteps. You would be the lamp to their feet, and you would guide them in the direction you have for them. We ask that you would bless their conversations, God, bless their moments as they go throughout their day, God, as they go throughout their week, as they go throughout their year. Just ask that you would just fill them, pour into them, and just be that guiding light. God, that you would just guide us to that next point, that next conversation, that next step, that next hunt, that next moment, whatever it might be, God, that you would just be there to direct. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Oh, that was awesome, Chance. Seriously, thank you so much. That was incredible. That it was just fun to get to hear your story and get to hear your faith story. That was a blessing. Thank you so much.
Thank you guys for the opportunity. Like I said, as soon as you guys asked, like the faith portion of it, that's been so near and dear to my heart and my wife's heart, and the company that we have, and just everything we do. I try to stay in that vein, and I think it's growing more and more all the time. So,
awesome.
Love it. Yeah, and I feel like every time we talk to somebody on here, I come away with a little bit of a piece that I can use for myself, and so. Chance, again, like Evan said, we can't thank you enough for you jumping on here today, and congratulations for your son that's going to be coming here, and we just pray for everything, pray for good health and everything, and that just I got two boys myself, and there's just something about them that makes your eyes twinkle a little bit more. So congratulations, man.
Thank you. I'm excited to have a boy. I've been a girl dad
have you and your wife on.
Oh, absolutely. We'd love to. We'd love to. I'm excited to have a boy. I've been a girl dad for 6 years now, so everybody's like, it'll be a different lifestyle. I'm like, you haven't met my 3-year-old. My second born is a second born through and through. So I think I'm
there's something about those. They definitely keep you on your toes.
Oh yeah, and I'm a girl dad too, and it made me laugh when you said about your oldest daughter about wanting to wear a princess dress shooting her bow, because that's like my daughter, where we'll be going out glassing in the truck, or we'll be getting in the boat just like we did the other night. She's got her dress on. It's like, it's okay. We're doing something instructive, so it's all good. And yeah.
Yep.
So it's fun.
Love it. Sweet. Well, Chance, again, thank you so much, man. And can't wait to have you on again soon and get an update from you and where RUT Holsters is and all that good stuff. So thanks, man.
Thank you, guys.
We'll be sure to include all of your guys, all your stuff in our bio and stuff like that too. So if anybody does have any questions or if they're interested in checking some holsters out, get a hold of them. And thank you so much again. We really appreciate your time and thanks for spreading the good word.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Thank you for joining us on this journey through faith and the great outdoors. We hope today's episode has inspired you to seek God's presence in the wilderness and deepen your connection with nature. If you enjoyed today's discussion, don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe to the Wild Faith Podcast on your favorite platforms, including Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. By subscribing, you'll never miss an episode, and you'll continue to be a part of the Wild Faith Podcast community. We'd also love to hear from our listeners, so please don't hesitate to reach out with your questions, comments, or topic suggestions. You can connect with us on social media or through our website. Your feedback is important to us and helps us improve and tailor our content to better serve you. And always remember, the great outdoors isn't just a playground for hunting and fishing. It's a sanctuary for finding solace and spiritual renewal. As you gear up for that next adventure, I pray you find God's presence in the crackling of a campfire, the thrill of reeling in your catch, or the quiet solitude found in nature. Until next time, thank you for listening to the Wild Faith Podcast. Take care, and God bless.